system is reflection on assumptions. You have to constantly ask yourself, what are we taking for granted here? And that is vital to the effectiveness of what you're doing. Totally vital to it. So this is what social construction works. These are some of the tenets. There's more in the book. Skills for getting ideas to spread. I'm going on to the second section now, which is communicate so people get it and spread it. Now, many hands should go up now. Who knows what nuclear fission is? Right. Okay. What's the core principle of nuclear fission? Just basic stuff here. What? Yeah. Gentlemen, I see your hand up. What? Go ahead.
Oh, you split the atom.
You split the atom, and what happens when you split the atom? It splits another atom.
It splits other atoms.
Right, and it's called a cascade effect. Right? It's a particular form of chain reaction where you have a one-to-many relationship. It's a cascade effect. That's how you want your communication to be. What does that mean? That means this gentleman and I have a conversation. It's so cool, so compelling, so exciting that when we leave each other, I have a conversation with her about the same thing, and he has a conversation with her about the same thing. And when we leave each other, now we have 4 conversations going. And you have the old Amway cycle of wealth building, right? Which is exponential growth in a nutshell. That's what you want. You want the conversation to be so exciting and so compelling that it's spreading like that, which means it's not being mandated to spread, but people are spreading it because they're actually interested in it. It's truly something cool to talk about. So here are the skills that we are not taught when we go to business school or when we go to most of our trainings in an organization. How do you lead a conversation that pulls people in? You do it by weaving them into the work, making their contribution be part of the output. You make them co-collaborators in the future. You get them involved. It's not just the boss saying, we're going to do this, everybody get along. Have you ever had a boss that says, you will collaborate? It doesn't happen. You have to create an environment where people feel comfortable stepping forward, where they can play, where they can make mistakes. And you co-create a shared future. This is a key set of competencies, and it's one that I teach when I teach these skills for this. These are skills for getting ideas to spread. I already talked about generating cascades of activity, and the last thing I want to talk about here is conducting, think orchestra, strategic engagement. Remember, engagement is people coming out and getting involved in what you're doing. So once you have communities over here, and communities over here, and communities over here, your job is to be the maestro and to sit there and make music. And what that means is that you're coordinating events, because events are the basic unit of human interaction. This is an event. A coffee is an event. A town hall is an event. An event is the basic unit of people coming together, and you're coordinating them. You're not leading them. You're not using Ropp's rules of order. You're saying, oh, look, here we have a group of people that are studying the properties of asphalt in high humidity conditions. And over here we have people who are building highways in the Amazon rainforest, and all the highways are falling apart. So maybe we should have some synergies between these two groups, right? That's called coordinating events or brokering knowledge by being aware of what's going on. Second, timing, emphasis, highlighting the people who are making major contributions, providing feedback. People look at the conductor to make sure that they're on time, not to learn their piece. They've already learned their piece if they're in the orchestra, right? But they want to make sure they're in sync with the other people, that they know where they are. And you want to create a balance among all this activity that is cohesive, compelling, and powerful. That's very different than managing a project. It's a different set of skills. Okay. Still going, right? Energizing your most valuable players. Who are these people? In the book, I give you 14 categories to stimulate your thinking. Often when I'm working on a project, we keep a daily list because the players change that often. People come, they go, they get reorganized. Who are the people who are influencing our system now? Here's political leaders, and political leaders might be people who are making U.S. policy or might be Congress, but it also might be the power brokers inside the organization. I have a list here of many different people who are the MVPs, but there's a couple that I want to just highlight because we don't have time to go through them all. One is your thought leaders, as you know, are not necessarily the ones who've been pegged by the organization as the thought leaders. You have to think of informal networks. Who are the people that everyone goes to when they want to learn something? Another one is what I want to call the practical visionaries. I spoke about them. Those are the people who are already pushing the frontier, the people who are known for getting results in creative ways. And I want to come down here to competitors and detractors. When we were doing knowledge management at the World Bank, we had many meetings. We did events all the time. and one of them was called the Enemies of Knowledge Management. We convened them. Come on in the front door and shoot at us. Think about all of the good stuff that comes from talking to the people who hate you. There's a lot of it. One, they will expose your backside so that you can fortify it before someone takes you out. That's called a high survival skill. Really. Two, if they convert, they will become evangelists. Think Paul of Tarsus. Converting an enemy is a huge coup. Third, if they don't convert, but you engage with them respectfully, you will gain the admiration of everybody who witnesses the interaction, and you will become known for someone who's truly interested in what you're trying to do, not some imperialist who's trying to grab more power and budget in the organization, because we all know that those people exist. So if you're really about knowledge sharing, and someone comes in and says, let me tell you why knowledge sharing is a bad idea at the World Bank, and you spend 2 hours talking about it with them, and you leave and you still disagree, but that's what you've been talking about, that person is going to say, well, they really think this is a good idea. They're really doing this because they care. You know, I think they're doing the wrong thing, but they may be misguided, but they're honest, and that's very important. That honesty actually creates a suction which pulls people towards you, like gravity, whether or not they're on your side. The fourth thing that happens when you engage detractors is that you will win them over partially. So they might say, knowledge sharing is a bad idea, but communities of practice is pretty cool. So I won't support anything you're doing except the community of practice thing. I will give you my time on that. And that's helpful too. So detractors actually are a source of rich rewards. What do you do with them once you got them? Once you've mapped out these people in your organization, you say to yourself, in a lot of my consulting, we actually create a list, and it's names, it's not roles. So it's Peter Wright and Naomi Stevenson. It's not like head of procurement and chief project manager. So we know who these people are because we're going to say what's their game and how do we get inside them, how do we get them on our side. Well, once you've got this list, then you need to ask yourself, how are we going to activate them on our behalf? How are we going to get them energized, jazzed, juiced so that they work for us? How are we going to equip them with the tools they need so that they can succeed in our mission? And how are we going to put rocket fuel behind them so that their impact is significant? Now, think about sending the warfighter out. You would never send a warfighter out who was not on your side, ill-equipped, and exhausted, right? You would never do that. That's bad. Not good for the show, right? So think about these people the same way. They are your evangelists. They need to be ready. They have to understand what you're doing, and they have to be ready to work. They need to have the right tools. In knowledge management at the World Bank, we put all of our PowerPoint on the web and just gave it away. If somebody anywhere on the planet wanted to talk about what we were doing, they could download it, and in seconds they'd have the same presentation we were using. And we updated it every time. And then you want to energize them. And what energizes professionals? Remember what I was talking about before? Success in their domain, right? That's what energizes them, a chance to do something well that makes a difference in their life. The other thing you need to know about professionals is that if you find the ones whose eyes are glazed over and they're lethargic, and it's hard to get anything more than monosyllabic responses from them, they're probably working for a dysfunctional boss. And you can come along and you can give them a new area to activate themselves in, and you will see them spring to life. It happens all the time. If you can put something in front of somebody where they get a chance to do the thing that they most care about, here's an example. At the World Bank, when I was first doing knowledge management, I was assigned to the environmentally and socially sustainable group. And I'll just take the environment piece. So think, biodiversity, ecology, environmental assessment, all of that stuff. When people come to the World Bank, they come at the apex of their career. Many of them have more than one PhD. It is not the most lucrative place in the world to work. Now, it's not shabby, but it's definitely not the most lucrative, right? So why are they there? They're there because they want to take their professional expertise and they want to put it to good use in the world. It's pretty close to why you're here, right? That's what they want to do. Now, imagine that you're an environment person. Let's say you're into biodiversity. And you're going to the World Bank, and you have these dreams, these visions, of making sure the gazelles stay alive, and the gorillas, and whatever your biodiversity thing is. And you show up, and you say, hey, let's really jump into this stuff deep. I know this guy in World Wildlife Fund, and I know this gal at Conservation International, and your boss says, oh, wait, we can't let them in here. They're our competitors. We don't talk to World Wildlife Fund. Conservation International, are you kidding? Those people are crazy. Do you know what they're trying to do? They're trying to buy up land. We don't work that way. And you're thinking to yourself, I know these people. This is my field. These are the thought leaders in biodiversity. You're telling me they're not allowed inside our doors because you have a political agenda. But you're not paying attention to the biodiversity agenda because if you were, you would know that these people belong inside our doors. That's what happens often in organizations. So when we convened the environmentally sustainable unit, we brought World Wildlife Fund and Conservation International and a host of others into the room. And we didn't ask anybody. They just showed their ID at the front door like everybody else and got a pass and came in and came up to the room. And then when those environment people came into the room, they looked around and they knew they were in the right place. They knew that whatever conversation was going to take place in that room, it was going to be the conversation that they should be participating in at that point in their life. And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about energized professionals. Ask yourself, who needs to be involved? What do we need to be talking about so that these people are on the growing edge of their field? That's what professionals get excited about. Okay, understanding the territory of change. You do this through story listening, which is the yin to the yang of storytelling. Story listening is about finding out someone's orientation. Where do they come from? What do they think is going on? The way that I map the territory of change is we take that list of most valuable players and I go out and I listen to all their stories. Or the people I'm working with go out and listen to them. And then from that, we create this reconnaissance report. And what the reconnaissance report is it's a single page or two that has bullets on it, the themes from these stories, and underneath the bullets in italics are quotes from people that we've spoken to without attribution. Because you're not there to nail anybody, you're there to make visible the thinking in the organization. So let's say that your change initiative is, we are going to become the preeminent organization in building deep space propulsion. I'm just making something up here. So you go out and you talk to people and you say, how's it going? What's your take on this? Are we succeeding? And the first person you talk to says, that's what they say upstairs, but they just pulled my budget and they told me that I had to conform to this policy, which is nothing about deep space. And I've got these 3 other projects that are due next month. And the partner in deep space has just terminated its relationship with our organization. They may be saying we're doing that, but let me tell you what, it ain't happening. So then the first theme on your reconnaissance report says, there are many conflicting demands and budget is diminishing. And underneath that, you put a quote in italics without attribution that says, they may be saying that upstairs, but here's what's going on in my life. Okay? And you put 2 or 3 of those under each bullet. And what happens is that you start to get a holistic sense of what's really going on in the organization. The people who speak to you see their words, but they know they're not getting attribution, so there's no fear in it. Instead, what happens is that they get an opportunity to see, am I like way out on the end somewhere, and nobody's thinking the same way I am? Or is everybody thinking the way I am and nobody's saying anything about it? And the people who are genuinely interested in the topic, deep space propulsion, get a sense of what's really going on. And then you share that report widely. It's not top secret. Names, bullets, quotes without attribution. When you go listening to those stories, you're looking for 5 gems. I call them gems because I think of it as collecting a treasure basket. The first thing is red lights. A red light is when somebody says to you, you're going to go down in flames and here's why. That's called a red light. Somebody's telling you to stop the show. You want to listen. Remember what I said about detractors. Yellow lights. Yellow lights is when somebody says, if you don't include so-and-so, you're in for big trouble. Or there's another parallel initiative that looks just like yours that just sucked up all the budget. You better go check that out. So a yellow light is a caution. Here's something you need to know. A theme, now those of you who do pattern analysis, remember I have a math degree, so this stuff turns me on. If you do, a theme is anything that's floating in the system. It doesn't have to be rational. It doesn't have to even be real. It just means that more than one person is talking about it. You want to know it. Educational deficits. An educational deficit is when you discover that people are not able to play at the level you want them to because there's information that they're lacking. And so you need to find a way to educate them so that they can get in and be part of the solution. Whoops. And the 5th one, I left off of there. That's interesting. Okay, I got to go revisit my system here. The 5th one is high value returns. Often, if I'm talking to 25 most valuable players, there'll be 2, 3, or 4 of them who spit out, something will drop out of their mouth, and I'll go, ooh, if we did that, it would